Oh yeah, go ahead, pump it up. I'd love to catch a firefly that's far away. I see your whole crew staring as I put the speed down. You're like a soup can, I'm like Superman. I saw Veronica, the girl that put you off blast, cause you played harmonica in art class. I know you want her to, but you don't move cause you don't have any shoes. You touch a pom-pom, I touch an A-bomb. Aw yeah.
20 nights in the ice is a long time when there's hostels on the hill. It's not about what they want, you just gotta walk your walk.
Hey guys, welcome back to another On the Sensors production. Got Polyfly and 86 with me here today, and I'm Majo. So we are going to talk about mulliganing, the art of the mulligan. So this is I think, I don't know if I want to say overlooked, but it is just a huge aspect of the game that can really determine your success in any given match. So, knowing some of the key ideas behind mulliganing and what do you want in your opening hand, how does that vary based on who your opponent is or the archetype of your deck? Are you playing aggro? Are you against aggro? Are you playing a support deck or a ramp kind of deck? So, all those things we're going to try to cover on some of those key points today. So yeah, I mean, just the basics, right? What is a mulligan? So in Destiny, you have a 5-card hand. In a 30-card deck, you draw 5 cards, and you can keep any number of those 5, and then put back any number, shuffle it, and then redraw up to 5. You can do that one time. So, with that sort of fundamental out of the way there, that's what we want to talk about. So what are we thinking, guys? What are some of the key areas we want to cover today? And yeah, I'll pass it over to you, Paulie. What are you guys thinking?
Well, I think Mulligan is, like you said, it's sometimes it's overlooked, and it's actually a pretty key part of the game because turn one, your first turn, your first actions are so crucial to the way that your deck plays, the way that your game is going to play, and how you set things up. And I think a lot of people underestimate that. Right? They just draw 5. They look at their opponent. They're like, "Yeah, I've got maybe something that I can play here," or maybe they throw back something that could really actually help them early. And then they're just kind of left rummaging around. I know for me, in general, some of the decks that I play, I look to keep maybe, depending on the deck, an upgrade or a support, maybe some sort of money maker to get me rolling, a merchant or a reap or something, depending on the deck. And then a couple of events. They may be healing, they may be removal, maybe more money,
Hmm.
depending on what I'm going for. So
Yeah, I think one easy one to just get out of the way right now would be your classic ramp cards like Merchant Freighter, It Binds, Forbidden Lore,
mhm.
Tech Team. Those are all fantastic cards to see in your opening hand. You know,
and you and,
um,
and you want to see those in your opening hand normally if you're running them, because you're going to get the most value out of cards like that early. You get them
yep,
late, you're not going to get that much value out of them.
yeah. You mentioned something else, Polly, that actually made me think of the video 86 did recently, which we called Mentality. Um, if you're not attuned to what your deck wants to do and therefore what you want in your opening hand, and then you're sort of just you have sort of a mishmash of cards turn one. I mean, that can really mess with you a little bit, right? You know, you might not have the most confidence in your turn one, board state or just what you're able to do, and that can just set you back even mentally,
Yeah.
going forward. It's happened to me, so really knowing what you want to do is going to help you understand what you want to mulligan for. So we've got a lot to cover. I mean, but 86 has something set up there for us. 86, you want to tell us what you got going on, man?
Yes, I have a few decks here. We're going to start with the Fets because this is the deck I've played the longest and I know it in and out, and I've probably
No.
played it against you guys the most.
Our
Uh,
resident Mandalorian.
yep. So I have Jango Fett, who is gain a resource when I plant equipment on him. Boba Fett, who rolls out when his number of dice that a defeated character has bounties on, and any means necessary I can remove a bounty hunter die to deal 1 damage or 2 if that character has 3 bounties on him. So the battlefield as well as Night Sister Lair. So right here, I want to construct around, before I even draw this deck, I'm going to look at what my opponent has. It's really important going in if I'm fighting a Vader Savage. Let's say it's Victor Leader Vader and Savage. I think I'm going to win that roll off. There's a lot of special sides. there's a good chance for me to get numbers. I'm going to be pretty confident there. If I think I'm going to lose a roll off, that is going to change what I keep.
Right.
So drawing 5. Okay. So opening hand, let's assume that I'm probably going to get around between 4 and 6 on my roll. I'm going to assume that I'm going to have a good chance at winning the roll off. I do want to keep bounties regardless. I have 2. So I have Dead or Alive. Play if you spot a bounty hunter, get a resource, and Wanted. When a character is defeated, get 2. Then I have Armor Plating. It's an equipment. I can block 2 damage. Reversal costs 3. Remove a die and deal that damage back to a character. And Arm to the Teeth. Discard any number of upgrades on one of your yellow characters. Deal damage to a character equal to the number of upgrades you just discarded. So looking at it here, I'm curious, what do you guys think you would keep and put back?
Well, if you're pretty confident against your opponent winning the roll off, I mean, obviously you're definitely wanting to keep the bounties because you're playing a bounty hunter deck, right? That's key. Your characters do things based on the amount of bounties you have. You're starting the game with 2 resources, so you're probably not going to be able to play reversal. So that's probably going to end up going to the discard pile, which late game you want that card, so you don't want it in the discard pile. Arm to the Teeth, even though it's a 0 cost, it only works if there's a bunch of upgrades on somebody. So it's not really
And you have
great.
to discard them.
Yeah.
You don't want to be doing that early on.
Yeah, you don't want to be dumping a bunch of resources turn 1 and then just getting rid of it. So that's probably a card that I would mulligan back as well. Armored Plating to me is one of those cards where in this deck I would probably keep it because correct me if I'm wrong, but Jenga will give me a resource back for playing it, right?
You are correct.
So there's no downside to playing it because it's essentially a 0 cost upgrade.
Yeah. And if
if
you
I,
have Bacta, you want to get that out there ASAP, right? Start getting those upgrades out.
So I would probably keep that in this deck. If it was a different deck that wasn't centered solely around like my characters wanting me to play upgrades on them, then I may not first round because I want to be blocking damage late in the game to keep my characters alive. But I think in this deck, those are the 3 cards I personally would probably keep.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. I know that armor plating can help you ramp. I don't know. I don't play bounty hunters that much, but I might even consider putting back armor plating, especially if my opponent had, I don't know, a squishy character, just to increase my chances of maybe getting out gauntlet rockets or a 2-drop weapon or upgrade like the jetpack or something that's going to help me push damage, and putting that back and just keeping 2 and mulliganing for 3 new ones would increase my chances of getting a weapon or something. And so you might look at it that way too. But yeah, it's interesting. It's a cool little. Is there 86? What would you do?
So I think we were unanimous that we would put these 2 back. Under certain circumstances, I might keep reversal, but I'm going to go ahead and put it back. I would put the armor plating back in hopes of drawing a 3rd bounty. And 3 bounties is going to put any means to where it deals 2 damage instead of 1. So then I shuffle. I'm going to draw 3 cards. And Electroshock, I'll hunt them down, and a jetpack. So I don't have a 3rd bounty, but I do have some ways to kind of...
That's a very playable hand there.
Yeah.
It's looking better than the opening one for sure. So absolutely. Good.
So what I did kind of there, I'm gonna coin the term in case somebody else has it. It's a working mulligan. So we talked about, or I don't know if we've talked about it yet, but some people do a hard mulligan. So if you play Bitter Rivalry, if you're an FFG, or maybe you play Flippy Anakin, the Reckless Operative. I forget his subtitle, but some people in FFG like to hard mulligan for the Steadfast.
Steadfast.
That's what it was.
Yeah, Steadfast.
Yeah.
So
classic
you put
card.
everything back and try to get Steadfast in your hand. I had 2 bounties here. I was trying to get a 3rd bounty. I'm going to keep that, and I'm making a plan, but I want to be flexible with what I get. So you're right. This I would be happy with this hand.
Mm-hmm. So hard mulligan is when you have a hand. Your very opening hand is 5 cards. You put all 5 of them back to maximize your chances of getting that one critical card, is what you're saying.
Hmm.
Whereas a working mulligan is sort of maybe you keep 2, maybe 3, and you put back the rest.
Hmm.
Okay, yeah, it sounds good.
I know decks that I've played that I would hard mulligan for are like support style decks that have yellow. Like I play Java Veers, and so I'm really looking for Reap. I know Java, after activating, might get to look at 5 cards, but if I already have a Reap in my hand, then maybe they don't know what's coming. So I would hard mulligan for a Reap, or I don't know. I mean, Maju, you play blue. What's a hard mulligan you would do in a blue deck?
Yeah, in my Inquisitors deck, so Big Bertha and 10th brother, the ninth, I think ninth sister, I believe is her name. Obviously, I want Forbidden Lore. I love Neiman. Neiman is huge in that
Oh,
deck.
yeah.
And I mean, those are really, if I have those, the Neiman for soft removal, or even some quick aggression to flip a die on my side. And they both, they both have 12 health. They have enough health to where I'm not crazy about if I'm left without any removal, that's okay. Unless I'm up against like a Vader Savage or something super aggressive, I might try to have some removal in my hand. But in a perfect world, an opening hand with the Inquisitors is a Forbidden Lore. It's a Neiman, maybe Unending Hate for a little bit of damage. I mean, obviously, it binds is great too. So yeah, maybe a piece of removal, maybe a Merchant Freighter, right? That would be really nice.
Sure.
So I think we kind of touched on it a little bit, but I think knowing what your opponent has, I mean, obviously there are characters you can see, but just understanding their archetype. Are they aggro? Are they a slower support style deck? And that's really gonna shape what you want. If you're up against a really aggressive deck like Trandoshans, and you fear that you might even lose a character round 1, potentially, or the top of round 2, like you probably want some mitigation in your hand. So even though you might get that card you might normally hard mulligan for, maybe you keep that 1 and put back 4 to get some mitigation, or it just depends. Or if you're up against pirates, you want that 2-drop just in case you get plundered.
Right.
So
Bringing up pirates, and I see what 86 is pulling out on the table, and the fact that we just spoiled Moff, who has a detect 2 and a really crazy ability with the detect. I think we're getting into an age of mulligan where what you mulligan for is you have to be very specific and very careful, because if you get something you can't play, do you want to keep it in your hand? And I think the deck that 86 is pulling
yeah,
up, I think, is a pretty good example of that. That detect mechanic, I think,
yeah,
it makes mulliganing much harder.
yeah. So 86, you want to take us through another example? We'll see what we get with
Yeah.
Jin Cassian.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note like how you would play a certain deck and what you would do. Just little changes with characters or plots. If I had captured with the Fets, for example, I would make sure I always had a bounty in my opening hand. No matter what, I need a bounty. And if I play a character with Detect, like Jin Cassian, where I can't play them, I definitely need to make sure I have as many bounties as possible, just to play captured. But going in with Cassie and Jin, it's kind of interesting because you kind of want to play slow. Normally, I find people play, they play their merchant freighters, they play their upgrades, and they save the removal for last. Cassian just has the modified sides, and Jin has the base sides. So Cassian is really not going to do a lot of damage unless you put something on him to do that. So I want to wait till my opponent plays a couple of cards, and then I'll roll them in. So I'm keeping that in mind as I draw this hand. And what I draw might change my plan a little bit too. So I have 2 of Jin's Blaster, 1 Rebel Assault, 1 Fortitude, and 1 Focus Fire.
Interesting.
Maju,
So
gonna...
I like Rebel Assault. That stays. Fortitude. I really want to get that Jin's Blaster out ASAP. But if I'm up against maybe super aggressive deck, I might keep the Fortitude. I don't know. But then again, some people might say, well, the best defense is a good offense. You can burn them down. They can't kill you if they're dead. I don't know. It's a tough one. I definitely keep Rebel Assault. I'd probably put back Focus Fire because I like that as a kill shot or just surprise damage. I don't know that I want that turn 1. Paulie, what do you think?
I'm mulliganing all 5. I don't like Rebel Assault in this instance, especially with what 86 said. You want to build up the stuff onto your characters, and so you're not going to roll them out, and you have to have dice in the pool for Rebel Assault to work. Focus Fire, I think, is a finisher card in a deck like this. You want it to, be able to do that extra damage to kill somebody off the table. While Fortitude is a good card, I don't think I want it early, only because I want to be able to add dice to the table early. And while Fortitude is a good card, turn 2, turn 3 maybe. Jin's Blaster is a 3 cost. I don't think that I'm getting to 3 resources first round, and so I'm not really playing it. I might keep 1 just in the hand because as soon as I get 3 resources, I want to play it, but that's a risk. So realistically, I'm probably mulliganing 4 or 5. Now, to be fair, I don't know what's all in this deck, but I'm assuming there's at least a couple of 2-drop weapons, and that's probably what I'm looking for, especially with Cassian, because he's just sitting on the table not doing anything, if Jin's dice go away. So
Yeah. All right, 86, what do you do?
So I think I would amend my plan a little bit, and Polly went in with what I said, and that is very correct. But I think I would roll out Cassian. I hope he got a modified range side, and so I could play Rebel Assault. I think I would keep that, and then I would keep Fortitude in the hopes that one, it's going to maximize my health. Again, I'm going to look at my opponent. If they have Hondo, who's going to have more health than me. If I draw a imposing figure, then I'm going to need that Fortitude to be able to play that imposing figure. Fia's Strength becomes online once Jin has more than 15 health. When I say online, it's for 2 die and not 1 die.
Yeah.
So I think I would probably keep these 2 and put these 3 back if it were me.
That's a great point. Knowing your deck, you have 2 Fia Strengths in there, you have imposing figures, and yeah, Fortitude is not directly related to them because you still could get those cards off without it. It's just they're more impactful or more likely to make a splash. So yeah, it's a great point. Fortitude really helps to ensure those other 4 cards in your deck are maximized. So that's a great point. Yeah, for sure.
So I think all of us have kind of decided that Jin's Blasters maybe keep 1, but at least one of them need to go back, correct?
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So Focus Fire, we don't want to play that too early. So the other Jin's Blaster, what do we think? Keep it, or we want to put it back?
I mean, I say cut it because if you're really planning on playing that Fortitude, there's no way you're spending 5 resources turn 1.
Okay. We'll go ahead and we're going to mulligan here. So we put 3 back and we kept 2. And mulliganing. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, which is another interesting thing to think about. I mean, you start with 2 resources. You would have to roll out 3 resources on 3 out of 4 dice would have to be showing a resource in order to play those 2 upgrades turn 1. So I mean, even just math sometimes can help you make your decision on what to mulligan or what to ditch. All right, so what do we get?
So we got another Focus Fire. We got a Burned, which it's one of my intel cards to ready a non
To ready the
character
plot.
card, and Cassian's Blaster.
Got it.
So we'll keep these for sure. We may or may not use these. Mulliganing doesn't always ensure that you'll have a good hand. What I had in the Fets doesn't mean that I will get something good in Jin Cassian. But depending on what I roll with Jin Cassian, if I get resources versus range die, for example, that can change a lot what I do turn 1 as well.
Yeah,
For sure.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you made a good point that mulligans are not a guarantee. They increase your odds of getting what you want and trying to optimize your hand, but it doesn't always work that way. So, well, that was good. Maybe we can start to close out. I know we're trying to keep our videos pretty brief and to the point. So, any parting thoughts, guys, before we head out tonight? Any nuggets?
Mulliganing is hard. You will never do it correctly all the time, but it is key sometimes to winning games.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm
Be
gonna
aware what your
say-
opponent has and help. That should be factored into your decision on what you keep and what you put back. Go ahead,
Yeah,
86.
I'm gonna say that any deck that you're gonna make, you need to have a plan. If you don't have a plan at the start, everything kind of falls apart. There are cards that I want at the beginning, and there are cards that I want at the end. So taking Qui-Gon Ahsoka, for example, if I think I'm gonna get the shields, taking the shields off, maybe a Jedi lightsaber, to putting them on where I get 4 shields, and then get a resource for taking a shield off. Sorry, it's late. I think that is something that I want in my opening hand. The Jarkai is something I want in my opening hand. Knighthood is something I want in my opening hand.
Right.
Being ready to use what you get. If I have too many, for example, back to therapies in here, and I get these in my opening hand, then I'm SOL because I can't do anything, and these are all dependent on what I get.
Yeah.
So I would say come in with a plan, realize what you're going to keep, and what you're going to do if you have something you don't want at the start.
Yeah. Well said. I just want to make one more quick comment because it just popped into my mind that this is a game. I know, Paul, you talk about this all the time. This is a game of variance. The dice roll. You got 6 sides on a die, and it's really random, right? What you end up with. Similarly, the cards you draw are random, essentially, and so that is another variance factor. You cannot guarantee what's in your opening hand, and sometimes it's just let's be real. I mean, it just sucks, right? It's a very unfortunate opening hand. It sets you back. Your opponent might be ramping hardcore, getting all their board state perfectly, while meanwhile you're just sort of stuck with 2 back to therapies, 2 reversals, and armed to the teeth. Right? Probably the worst opening hand.
Yeah.
And sometimes it happens, but you just have to play more, right? You'll in the long run, as long as you sort of work on mulliganing skills, you'll win games. So. All right, guys. Well, that was a good one. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. So yeah, we'll keep bringing you content on a regular basis. This today was the art of the mulligan. So yeah, if you have any ideas for future topics, let us know. Put it in the comments, or come talk to us on the sensors, and put it in the talk to us in the general channel, and we'll be out there listening to you guys. So with that, guys, I think we'll close them out, and appreciate you watching. So take care.